Welcome to the inaugural episode of iT1 in Session, where we break down what's happening in technology and business and what it means for you. Thank you all for joining today. I'm your host, David Harper, the Chief Revenue Officer here at iT1. For those of you who may not know who we are, we're a solution provider headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, but we do have a global reach. We really focus on helping customers align technology to business outcomes, from infrastructure to cloud, security, managed services, and everything in between. Really, at its core, we're really focused on just simplifying technology. If I had to put it into my own words, reducing risk and helping our clients move faster with confidence. I'm really excited about this inaugural iT1 in session here. I want to take a moment to thank Dell, our sponsor for this session. Right. We're here to dive into a topic that I feel is evolving and impacting nearly every organization, which is modern managed services. What's changed and what really matters now? To set that stage, managed services used to be pretty straightforward. Keeping the lights on, managing infrastructure, responding when somebody opens a ticket. But today, I think it's really a different game. We're talking about proactive strategy today. We're talking about cybersecurity at its core. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. I promise this is not going to be a whole session on AI. And what are managed service partners today responsibility and expectations to really drive business outcomes and not just support tickets. I'm super excited. Thank you again for joining us here today. I have two very special guests with me today that I'd like to introduce. iT1's Chief Technology Officer, Will Herrera, and Mike Heller, our Senior Director of Services. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today and talk about this exciting topic.
This is great. This is great. And, I think we have a very similar background, all of us. I think we all, pretty much started in a help desk in some form or fashion. But, just for the audience out there to see how many are more in my era, when I started managing, doing help desk, the fastest processors were 70 megahertz to 200 megahertz. I was managing Windows 3.1. And back then, that wasn't the year it was released. That was just the version, Windows 3.1. You either had a Pentium or a Celeron. Those are your options, right? And for those of you that have come through those ranks and had to do imaging, I just want to say Ghost Image had just been released. Just setting the stage on if anybody is in my world of the help desk. Maybe a little bit about where you're coming, your background.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not quite in that era there, Will. But I am in an era, though, where, you didn't have all of the external devices, portable devices. Yeah. So we've seen a big proliferation of, when we talk managed services, I know we're going to get into it, but just the evolution of like where you were, things that I saw when I came on into the scene, right? What today's technologists have to support, it's crazy.
I think that's a great introduction. Yes, I started out my career in technology more on the technical side as well. Can't say that I supported 3.1, but even from when I started 13 years ago, the technology landscape has just changed drastically. And I think as, technology leaders, right, really want to focus today on your expertise for our audience. And that's why I think this is such an important topic, right? We see a lot today where, organizations are having to come up with different strategies and ways to be able to support their business, right? And so, managed services is a big part of our organization, and we see it becoming even a larger part of our customers. So with that being said, gentlemen, really want to, start the definition of what is modern managed services. Let's take a few minutes and really just break that down.
Well, I'll start with a little bit. So back in my time, it was about processing tickets. It was uptime. Today we're talking about not just uptime, but performance, degradation of performance, risk, security concerns, cybersecurity, and overall, what's the user experience, right? It's not about closing tickets. What's that user experience? And such a remote workforce, as you mentioned, right, that creates a much difficult environment to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say today's workforce is much more disparate, and we have a responsibility to be able to support users across the board. And I also think one of the things that you're also seeing is you're seeing the workforce evolve in the sense that those that are coming on board into the workforce and that we're supporting from a managed perspective, they already are further along on their technical knowledge. So they can support self-support in a lot of ways. But what that means for us is that the tickets that we do get are probably a little bit more complex. And we have a responsibility to be able to still provide that same level of service.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you think about, let's just talk about the landscape in the last 7 years of how business has changed and what technology needs to do to support organizations. I mean, do you both feel like everything that we've gone through multiple eras, right? COVID, multiple pandemics, et cetera, where now the ecosystem of supporting a business has just drastically changed. Do you feel like that plays a major role into how MSPs have to function today? With things like remote workforce, security, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a pandemic, and that was Windows ME. If anybody remembers that, that was a pandemic. No, but I agree with you. I think there was a big shift, from that everybody went into an office, everybody was working from an office, usually had IT people in that office. Now it's remote. You could have somebody with great connectivity, bad connectivity, and you have to have a lot more tools. It used to be more reactive.
Yep.
And in today's environment, you talk about the last 7 years, it's more reactive. You have to know ahead of time that this is going to impact the user and how, and being able to fix those before it hits those users or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Or if you have one user that has a problem, being able to have the tools in place to tell you, hey, these other 6 individuals or 8 are more than likely going to be affected by this. So that insight into what's going on in the customer's environment, whether that's remote or on main locations. So,
I mean, I think maybe there's a term that we could call time to diagnose, right? I mean, if you think back when it was, let's spin up a go-to meeting, if we remember go to meeting, and that's how we started being able to visualize and help walk people through, help and supporting them remotely. Whereas now the time to diagnose, and that's one of the big benefits we have in technology today, is we have these tools that are out there that we leverage that helps us be able to already have access to their machine. And so by the time we're supporting them, our time to diagnose due to the data that we already have access to can continue to shrink. And that's a direct benefit to our customers. And the result therein is it allows us to be able to support our customers that much more better.
I mean, I love that, Mike, time to diagnose, because for me, I just think that correlates directly to customer outcomes, right? I mean, I think that's a huge thing to think about when you talk about modern day MSPs and even, Will, that proactive approach that you talked about. So I know we're going to talk about a lot of different, areas of what is a modern MSP today, but I'd love to hear from our audience too. Feel free to put in the comments, what are some things that are, impacting your business today and how your technology teams have had to change over the years. Maybe you don't have to go back as far as Will and some of his days of supporting, but would love to hear some of those stories too. So we think about this holistically. We've talked about maybe some pieces of it, but the driving shift, like what is the real driving shift? Maybe, say 10 years ago, but even more relative to what's the driving shift today? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big shifts that you're seeing is as the expansion of technology has taken place, single organizations cannot even self-support. They don't have enough people. They don't have the expertise on staff to be able to support to the level that's needed in order to get business done today. Yeah. And what that's doing is it's actually forcing companies to leverage managed service providers like ourselves. And I think what they're seeing is that we, as their managed service partners, we make a real impact, and we make that impact quickly. And we're able to really be with them shoulder to shoulder as they're solving their business problems and they're moving forward.
No, I was going to feed off of that. So, yeah, I think back in the day, it was more of a cost cutting. Yeah. A lot of people looked at managed services as the ability to reduce costs. I think more people today look at it more as, how do I become more resilient, right? How do I handle those peaks and being able to, as help desk tickets, managed services, whatever it is, right? As that influx of volume of tickets come in, how am I able to handle it? Maybe it's a Black Friday and retail, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
The other side of it too is we're seeing a lot that the work-life balance. Seeing a lot of them leveraging managed services to be able to leverage their employees to do projects and focus on things that impact the business. and leveraging a managed services provider to be able to keep the lights running and keeping things moving. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great nuggets there. Honestly, I could talk about this for hours, but partnership, right? That word that you said, I really think that's a defining factor of managed services today. Talk to me a little bit about partnership and what that means from an MSP, and maybe how it correlates to, I think there was maybe some misconceptions in the past that, hey, if I work with an MSP, I have to outsource everything. Now I'm impacting people, process, my costs. What does that really look like today in the landscape from a partnership perspective?
I think you can take that a couple of different ways. And one way that I'll go is maybe different than what would be a typical answer. So we work with clients that are extremely small all the way up to large enterprise. I happen to be on site with a customer today, and we are currently their IT, and things are going well. But as I was meeting with him, he said, "Hey, Mike, we're actually going to hire an IT person internally." And I think maybe this is going back to what Will was saying, where managed service in the past could be looked at as a cost-cutting measure.
Yeah.
And my response to this individual was like, great. Managed service providers, we provide a huge benefit. Now, when we can work closely with an IT professional that's on site with them, that's going to help us adopt even faster. They're facing some challenges, this company, with their IT, that they need a partnership, and they just don't have the bandwidth or the expertise on their side to fully effectively use an MSP. So I do think that there's a level of a middle ground there where MSP provides that huge value, but being able to partner with the IT technologists at that organization is what can really move that ball forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have customers that are right in the middle of a major metropolitan area, and we have customers that are out in rural areas.
Right.
And they have different challenges. The ones that are in rural areas have a hard time finding a subject matter expert for everything that they have in their environment.
Yeah.
Whether that's their infrastructure, the applications they support, right? It's a very broad type support that they need. And so hard to find those resources in those areas sometimes. So a managed service provider can provide that capability and provide them with those. I think the other part, going back to work-life balance, we deal in a world where cybersecurity is 24/7. So if you're only staffing for 9 to 5 and weekends are, somebody else is taking a look and looking at your environment. So for us, being that 24/7 for the customers, it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great segue into a really big topic that we're seeing a lot in, which is security as the baseline. I mean, let's just talk about that, gentlemen. I mean, you think about IT in general 10 years ago, but even more prevalent now, managed service providers. Where does security, sit within an MSP today? What does that even look like? Would you say it's at the forefront of every decision
100%,
that's made?
100%. I mean, one of the things that we are constantly from managed services is patching environments, right? We've got customers who, CDs get released, if you're familiar with those, where it's a constant like, hey, this has a vulnerability now, this has a vulnerability. Make sure that systems are patched, that systems are being maintained. Right. So, those 24/7. But like patching is a perfect example. We got customers that have a very big environment. They have a very small staff. So we're able to do all that patching and making sure those systems are being kept up to date from a security perspective. On top of which, we also do SOC services, right? So maybe, that's another segue where managed services can really help from a security perspective.
Yeah, I mean, right now the time to detect, time to remediate. I mean, those are some of the terminologies that are in the boardroom. Is how protected are we? What's our security score? What's our threat landscape look like? But how quickly can we help them detect it and then remediate? Yeah. And leveraging the tool sets that we have, the expertise that we have, to be able to get in front of it, as Will was talking about, making sure that those systems are patched when new CVEs come out, analyze, evaluate, making sure we're proactively reaching out to our customers and saying, hey, we need to go ahead and push this patch now, and having those rules of engagement even set up beforehand helps us be able to reduce that time to detect. And then ultimately we can, not have to worry quite as much about the remediation. When we do have to worry about remediation, that's where we can continue to provide value and partnership, and with our customers knowing that we're going to be there along the steps with them.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that the expectation today for managed service providers is that, they are managing all aspects of security. I mean, security is a very broad topic, guys. I mean, it could cover cloud, it could on-prem, the end user. I mean, we could talk probably about this for multiple hours and dive into a variety of different topics. But, is the expectation that a managed service provider in today's world, are they covering everything from a security perspective?
I think you have to know where your strengths are, and then form partnerships and continue to be able to be that technical advisor for your customer.
Yeah.
I think that to be able to cover all the spectrums of the threat landscape today, that's going to be difficult to do a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
But I think working with your customer, understanding what their vertical are, what types of attacks are coming at them, and then help providing them with a plan to be able to strengthen their posture overall, and then demonstrate that through execution is really where you can win in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll piggyback off of that, right? I think the posture.
Right.
And managed services helps you maintain that strong posture, making sure that all the things that you're supposed to be doing, all those best practices,
right,
all those boxes are being checked. But I think the other part of it is that remediation when you're 24/7. I mean, I came from a world where, I would get calls at 5:00 in the morning, to go back to when I managed, managed services or help desk. Today, right, you want to have a managed service provider that has 24/7, because they're not going to be convenient and do it at 2:00 in the afternoon, right? The incidents usually are happening in that evening. And being able to have the staff and being able to have people that can actually work on your environment when resolving those issues at that time is critical.
Yeah. You were telling me just last week, Will, that you were on site with a healthcare customer of ours that they went to bed, and then when they woke up, there had been a security incident. The infrastructure team, 24/7, had not only received the alert, understood what was going on, and put the necessary measures in place to remediate that. So that way, when they came back and started work the next day, all we did was say, "Hey, this is what we did," and they said, "Wow, that was great."
Yeah, just hey, here's everything that happened last night.
Yeah.
Here's the timeline. Here's what's been resolved. Here's the retroactive change control. It was a great experience, right?
Yeah.
All those that have been through my world, where you've been up all night working on something on the weekends, interrupting, birthday parties or whatever that be, it's managed services allows you to have that work-life balance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, Mike, specifically for you, you've ran managed services teams, but also security teams for a long time. You think about the work that managed services providers, whether it's just managing the data center, the end user, et cetera, the work that they have to do versus the work that, the security teams usually have to handle. I think sometimes organizations get caught up in looking at them as separate, right? Separate operations of the technology stack. And, they're really not truly covered, because a lot of organizations will say, "Hey, I have the best of breed security technology and I'm getting alerted and notified." But what people don't think about is that there's actually work that has to get done.
Right.
So, how does that better together story work in real life with when you have the best of breed security technologies, but then you're working with a managed service provider to do everything you talked about as far as mean time to detection and repair? What does that relationship look like?
Oh man, it's crucial. Having the right tool set, partnering with a company that understands the space, making sure that your security posture is strong, and then having the tools deployed. Secondly, being able to have the security professionals on staff that can then say, when this alert happens, I can determine disposition. Is this a security event? Do we have an incident? What's going on? And then having the technologists on staff to be able to then remediate. If you're missing any one of those pieces, you're going to be behind the game. The costs are going up because it's going to take longer to remediate. Your business is going to be at risk. And depending on the size of your business, you could be out of business.
Well, and let's not also forget, from a business perspective, there's a financial impact there.
Absolutely.
Every second that an organization is down, you're losing, revenue essentially.
Right.
So I think it's a big sticking point. Not to say something very broad here, but do you feel like, if you're working with a managed service provider today and they're not bringing some sort of security to the table, are you in a good place?
Yeah, I think if the answer is, "Oh, that's not what we do," you're really not serving your customers, and you're not positioning yourself as a solution provider.
Yeah.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, while we may not have everything in our toolbox, we have partners that we work with closely that helps round that out. The reality of today is when we talk to customers, you have to talk the full spectrum of support. If you're solely focused on, we do these things, we only do these things, that's our focus, you're missing out a lot of opportunity. And ultimately, what drives business is you're not solving problems for your customer, because they just don't have the time to be able to talk to all of those vendors. They're expecting us as their partner to bring those best of breeds to them.
Yeah. I'll add to that, but then I have a question for the audience on that. So one of the things that, piggybacking on being able to support and security on those, I think, our flexibility of managed services. Some customers of ours bring their own type of security that they have, that they've implemented, that they trust. And we would adapt to that and be able to support theirs. Others are looking for our advice as to what should we do, what are those. And it goes back to what you're saying, understanding what vertical they are in, whether they protecting, and being able to understand that and being able to support it. But, I'm curious. So again, going back to my era, so what tools did you guys use back in the day? And when I say back in the day, hopefully there's someone out there with me. But like for me, we used to use PC Anywhere. That's how we used to log into the computers and manage it. We use Ghost. I'm just curious to see what else is coming out there that people might use. Maybe if you guys use different tools. I figure you're using everything that was out. Just kidding. Days ago.
It is funny. I mean, there is a lot of modern day tools that I would say when I ran technology teams that are still in existence today. But even, it's been a few years since I've ran technology teams, but it's changed so much just in that short period of time. I mean, there's so many different tools and systems out there today to be able to, really modernize the tech stack, if you will.
Sure. MindSpring, Earthlink. Don't ring a bell to you? Sorry.
All right, sorry.
Hopefully it's out there. Hopefully
we're not going back to the AOL dial-up times. No, I think when we think about that, security being such a big part of it, what I heard during that conversation is that, yes, security is very important, and everything we've talked about so far, I think it comes into really a core focus, and that's how do you be more proactive with organizations today? Talk to me a little bit about that, gentlemen. Like, how much and that sounds so simple, but how much of an impact is that really making for our customers today, just in being a proactive provider?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where we start, and I think we're 25 minutes into this, and I don't think we've said the word yet.
We haven't. Don't spoil it yet.
I think we're about to. I think we're about to use the term AI, right? And it's changing the game, right? When I running managed services here at iT1, coming in, we have a great team. We're focused on that client experience. We're focused on making sure we're there when they need us the most. All of the great things that we take great pride in and that are expected. Now what? And then now what really comes heavy with, how do I enable my team to be able to do more with the technology?
Yeah.
How do I solve business problems leveraging technology? I was thinking this morning, right now there's a big conference in San Francisco going on, and I was remembering a few years ago where everything was SOAR. Everything was SOAR, right? And how many playbooks did you have? How could you click the button and it's going to run a playbook and it's going to fix things and it's going to do it based upon, event-based scenarios. And man, did we have the best time with all the buses driving by with SOAR, and we were just talking about SOAR. And this year, it's all about agentic AI,
right?
And I mean that's a key term, and I think it's going to be fascinating in the next couple of years to see how agentic AI, really changes the game. What does it do for us today, right? Well, customers are wanting to know not just what's happening, but what is the visibility layer that you have to be able to go in and see what could be happening, where is that happening. And then with agentic AI, how can you take proactive measures to self-heal and fix my problems.
Yeah. And before I don't want to go too deep into the AI conversation. I mean, I'm so glad we made it 25 minutes and we didn't even say the word AI, but we think about that proactiveness that it provides. How are we seeing that used in, our business today? How are we supporting customers with the use of, different technologies?
So I'll touch base on the AI first, but I did want to touch base on partnerships, as you were the original question there. So on the AI side of it, I think there's an expectation of still having a human being helping another human being and being able to resolve issues. But it's resolving the issue. It's that user experience. So being able to help the help desk technician to get the information they need immediately, quickly in front of them, so that they can help the end user resolve the problem as quickly as possible is big. Partnerships. Going back to what you said about partnerships and how things are changing, let's talk about some of the things that are changing. We've got, a lot of situations now where people only support a certain operating system, whether that's the Windows, they just support Windows,
right,
but they're getting pushed of either Apple or a Linux operating system or whatever that is, and they don't have those expertise. And being able to have with those cadence calls that, in our managed service provider, the customers that having the conversation, hey, we can help. We can manage those other operating systems. We can manage devices, whether that's Chromebooks or we're talking iPads, whatever that is, and being able to provide that service. VMware. We have customers that are going through VMware. Whether you're looking to stay with the VMware and moving to it, having the ability to the additional features added in VMware that come with the licensing and us being able to support you and help you while you get either your team or your staff up to speed, or you just need somebody to just manage it all for you, right? Yeah. There's a lot of great features that are added in it. We have other customers that are moving away from VMware. Given them that subject matter experts that will support them and help them, right? So managed services can provide a lot of stopgaps when you don't have that internal skill set in-house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot that you said there that I want to kind of dive into a little bit on that proactive approach. And one thing I think you mentioned was, I would put in my own words, visibility, right? So I think one simple thing that, is an expectation today, if I'm the customer and you're providing these services to me, like there's got to be some form of visibility to be able to see what's going on in my environment. What are you doing? How am I articulating the value that I'm providing to, that you're providing to me as my managed service provider? What are some things that we do a little bit differently, you feel, as far as, providing that visibility to our customers?
Yeah, I mean, client intimacy is huge. We take each client, we look to see what are their business needs. Most of our clients have a client success manager that's assigned to them, and their job is really to bridge that relationship between the delivery teams and our clients. Now, I think another thing that sets us apart, call the numbers, ask to speak with an engineer. You can speak with an engineer, but we do work with the client success team to be able to understand what those business needs are, what reporting metrics are important to our customers, and then proactively provide those. And a lot of times what we do is we uncover things that are on the customer roadmap through our conversations, and then we can help solve those problems that they're having with the managed services that we have in place.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear from our audience too, if, especially the technology leaders on the call today. You think about visibility from a partner, what does that really mean to you? What are some of the key things that you're looking for, from a visibility perspective when you're working with a managed service provider, or just, outsourcing some aspects of your technology and business? I think another thing that comes to mind in as far as proactive approaches outside of visibility is that, strategy, right? Where does road mapping, strategic initiatives, where does that play in? Because a lot of managed service providers today, it's very much that reactive organization. I said it in the intro, working tickets, but really, does working tickets move the business forward? And I think that's where the big difference is between, say, 10 years ago and today. I think there's some expectations that an MSP needs to be a part of the bigger strategic conversation, right? And so, where do you all see that when you're working with customers? How does a modern managed service provider fit into that roadmap, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, we see ourselves in the boardroom. We see ourselves with our clients. I mean, whether we're physically in there, but what we see with the data and the insights and our view on the technology world going into the boardroom. And so a part of our job, let's work the tickets. Let's make sure we're providing great service. To us, those are checkboxes.
Right.
That's what we're going to do. What we want to do is help advise our our clients with that strategy and give them the insights that they need to be able to make an impactful decisions all the way up and through the boardroom.
Yeah.
I think there's, the other thing with managed services is we have seen quite a bit. So when, the larger number of customers that a managed service provider has, the more visibility they have into such a greater differential of environments out there. So we might see an issue with a customer. We already know there's a possibility I got 10, 15 other customers to reach out to say, hey, this is likely going to be impacting you. Let's talk about it. Hey, we've seen this as a challenge for one customer, right? That now it's like, here's another opportunity for resolving that issue. I think the other part of it is, with ours, we also have the professional service side of the arm. So having the conversations and those cadence calls, a lot of things come out as to what other projects they might be working on that, they need managed services or help, with being able to deploy whatever. So those, I think, from a managed service perspective, is something that iT1 can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about, I'm going to put ourselves in the customer seat, right? I know we've all been on the customer side of the world too, right? What do you think some things that customers should be thinking about or doing when you think about how to, hold your MSP accountable to be that proactive provider? What do you think are some things that maybe a customer can do or should be doing?
I think for me, when I was, from a customer perspective, I think for me, it was always, when I can't tell when my employees end and the managed service provider's employees begin, that's a great feeling, because that means that the teams are working really well together. They're communicating well together. They're resolving issues together. There's an understanding of the handoffs, right? So if something happened last night, being able to document everything to be able to hand off in the morning, say, hey, here's everything we fixed last night, patching, if there was any challenges with that, all of those pieces, and being able to have those conversations with, customers. So for me, I look for that from a managed service perspective. I'd say the second one is transparency.
Right? Yeah.
I think in this day and age, being able to see the same exact dashboard, same tools, same everything that a managed service provider is seeing. So I know that they're meeting my SLAs or SLOs, whichever one you guys want to go through. But those are some of the things that for me, from a managed service provider, is transparency.
Transparency is huge, and we even take it another level. So we leverage technology. We want that end user customer feedback, and that for us is gold, for the good or for the bad.
Right.
And so in addition to all of the metrics that we have and that we're providing, that visibility layer that we have across our customers, we're looking for that feedback from all the way from the people that we work with every day to Brenda at the front desk. We want to make sure that we're providing good service across the board and receiving that feedback.
Yeah.
So for one of the things that we do is that, whether it's whatever the feedback is, we capture that, we analyze that, and we look for areas and opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, transparency is key. I mean, there's a wise guy once said, feedback is a gift, right? So, I mean, I think having that opportunity to be able to, have those very direct and transparent conversations with our customers is super important, because look, in the world of technology, something's going to happen. Something's going to go down. Something is going to break. Somebody may not respond to something, but I think it's about how you respond to those incidents, right? It's about the communication, and I think that goes back to partnership, right? Being able to have a true partnership. Will, I love the aspect, your thought on, right, when I could tell that there was no separation between my team and an MSP, I knew things were working. I mean, that's so true. I mean, and I think that sometimes where there's a lot of factors that go into that, but you think about the relationship between the two technology teams, and, the big important thing is making sure that those teams feel empowered to be able to work together, to be transparent, and have those open lines of communications. I think is super important.
One of the things that we've seen, also along this lines from a customer is when we talk managed services actually means something different to everybody.
Yeah.
And so how understanding their definition, a customer definition of managed services compared to ours, and then aligning and finding that common ground, that's going to result in a better end user and customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think, having conversations with, CIOs, CTOs, and we have these conversations is that, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to work-life balance? Are you looking to give your employees some abilities to be able to work on projects, be able to do this? And so having those great conversations up front, it's I love it when they tell me, hey, if you see something, say something type mentality, because that's what we love, right? If you allow us to, when we see something in the environment, something that, hey, this is going to cause you a problem in the future, or it could be a security risk, hey, we need to go ahead and make those changes. So,
I mean, we had a customer, this is a great success from last year, right? We have a customer in a very large retail space, and we were around the holiday season. And I mean, the holidays, for different companies mean different things.
Yep.
And in this specific example, we were in a scenario where, day after Thanksgiving is a paid day off for iT1, not for the managed services 24/7 team, but for most. So, I think operationally speaking, it could be fair to say that there's an opportunity to maybe not have the full staff that you would on a typical Friday. Well, understanding the customer, right? And in this scenario here, understanding that, hey, guess what? We have retail customers that are going to be open. They're actually going to be more busy than a standard day.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we did through understanding who our customers really are is we actually stepped up on that day. And we communicated to that customer through partnership, hey, we just want you to know that we understand this is a huge moment and huge day for you and your company. It is for us as well. And so we actually staffed up and made sure that when they needed us the most, we were there. And I think that is when you talk about managed services 2026, it's not just based on, well, the contract is 9x5 and you get 150 tickets a month. And then it's, oh, I'm sorry, sir, it's 515. You're out of support hours.
Yeah.
Please +2 if you'd like to purchase more.
Yeah.
That's not the game. That's not the game, right? Like, have those conversations, when it's appropriate, but not in the moment. It's about helping the customer.
100%.
And you can only do that if you know who your customers are. And I think that's where we've set ourselves up for a success with a huge focus on customer intimacy and experience. Will's direction for this year is err on the side of awesome. And I love it. That's been our mantra ever since we started 26 is err on the side of awesome. And when you think about that, it's how do you level that up, right? And you level it up by being there for your customers when they need you the most, regardless of the time or where you might be.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I love that mantra. It also goes with my mantra as well, which is just show up, right? I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what's going on, show up. And I think that's across the board, but showing up for our customers, or, I think not just our customers, but in the managed services space in general, an MSP showing up for their customer when they need them the most, it's so impactful. And I think it's to your point, I love that managed service provider 2026. I mean, that really defines it.
So, should we address? I mean, I'm wearing a really nice shirt, and so is he. I mean, are they going to be like, why are they both wearing? Did they call each other? And
we do usually coordinate our get-ups.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great segue into really taking the opportunity to thank Dell. A very strategic partner of iT1's. iT1 is a Dell Technologies Titanium partner. Really appreciates the support, the strategy that Dell puts into helping customers across a wide variety of different technology landscapes. You think of the end user, you think of modern infrastructure and what that means today. I know that was a big topic of our organization earlier this year. They really step up and show up for customers as well. So thank you to Dell for sponsoring our inaugural iT1 in session. Okay, we have made it. We are 40 minutes in, and we're going to talk about AI.
Let's do it.
So really what I want to start was talk about AI from the aspect of, managed services provider, right? Where my mind goes is the end user, the customers. How are managed service providers leveraging AI today? And maybe if I'm a customer, what should I expect from my managed service provider as it pertains to AI? And I'll say AI and automation, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think in the AI automation front, you're seeing we're on that frontier, right now, and there's very, very many ways you could go down this. I can talk about on our side, it's that presentation and that understanding and contextualization of the data that we have in front of us. And so, like, as it's just an easy example, when we receive a ticket, in our help desk, that ticket is coming in preloaded for our help desk technicians with, hey, you've had the same type of ticket these 5 times. Here's how this is resolved. Here's a suggested response out. All of that is, again, reducing that time to diagnose and that time to remediate. And so that's something that data correlation just wasn't there before. Reducing the number of clicks to get to an answer helps us be able to help our customers more quickly. I mean, that's just kind of like your basic example, I think, of how AI can be leveraged today.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just had an executive fly in, a couple of executives actually flying, and we were having a conversation, and they said their managed service provider just sold them on something that just wasn't. Right. They sold it as if it was AI, their help desk, and all of it. It just wasn't. It isn't there. And so, they were digging into the covers as to what we provide and how we leverage that technology. And they want that user experience to be a good one. And if the user wants to open a ticket via chat, it should be available to it. If they want to open it off a web page, fine. If they want to make a phone call and call in and talk to a human being to resolve their ticket, right? That's where you have to shift. And then with the AI, being able to resolve those quickly, being able to understand what challenges they're having, and then provide some additional, capabilities. But, going back also with cadence calls and leveraging AI, being able to then go proactively back to the customer and say, hey, I think if we do these things, your users will have a better experience. But we leverage tools today in customer environments where it'll tell us if the issue they're having is a driver that's causing the problem, and do you want to revert it back to a different driver if maybe a Wi-Fi issue, right? So I think that we're leveraging the tools to be able to tell us what's the most likely issue that the user is having. It's frustrating when the user says they have a problem and IT looks and says, no, you're not having a problem. No, they're having a problem. They're telling you they are. And being able to have the tools that we have today to be able to diagnose that and give you, hey, this is what the most likely issue is, and resolving it is part of that managed service. It's what you should expect from a managed service provider.
Speaking of service providers, it was interesting. I don't know if you guys have eaten at any of those restaurants yet where they have the robotic waiter that comes around and delivers the food.
I have.
Have you had that?
I have not.
You haven't?
No.
Oh my!
But you'll have to tell me what that one's on.
Yeah. So basically, they come and they take your order, and then next thing you know, a robot comes out and wheeling your food out, and then there's your food and your order. I was actually in Georgia just a couple of weeks ago, and this is like a really nice restaurant, and we ordered our food, and then like 10 minutes later, a little robot comes out with all of our food, and then they give it to us, and then there you go. I think that's interesting in the sense that, like, they got it right in that instance. Right. My quesadilla had the shrimp in it just like I like it. And so that was awesome. But there are still cases, and, this is really speaks to the frontier of automation and AI. I mean, here in Phoenix, Waymo has been for many years now, everywhere, a test bed. And now you look over, and you're stopped at a stoplight, and there's going to be one around you.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But limitations and understanding the capability set. It was about a month or so ago, a hilarious, well, I thought it was.
Can we tell what a Waymo is?
Oh, yeah.
People who may not
know.
Waymo,
yes. A Waymo is a self-driving vehicle, fully autonomous. So there's no driver. You order it up, it pulls up, and it takes you where you're going to go. You open the door, you close the door, and there it goes. But realize what I just said. You open the door, you close the door. So there was some interesting individuals that thought they'd play a little joke on Waymo and exploit a functionality flaw. And so there's a group of people, they ordered all of these Waymos, and then they all got out. They went to the same location. They got out of the Waymos, and then they opened the door and they left the door open. and Waymo doesn't have a way to close the door. And so now you were stuck. I think it was like 50 Waymos that were all in this one place. Thank goodness, not on a railroad track, which has happened. Yeah. And with all of the doors open and no way to close it. And I think when you look at like a service provider, in this time now, I think we're going to talk about 2 to 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Man, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But even in today, I think as managed service providers, we have that responsibility that if we open a door, if we allow for something to be used and we leverage an AI, we should have the understanding of what is it going to take to close that door, because you don't want to create more problems, or create false positives. What you want to do is make sure that you're leveraging it in the way that you're actually making an impact in solving problems.
Well, and I think what I hear there is, hey, it's a great tool. It can be used when properly used, but it still requires, a human to be able to interact and take it across that finish line,
right.
At least in today's world, right? I think the other piece, I don't know about you all, but I get angry if I call into a hotline and I'm talking to an AI person the entire time. It's the most frustrating experience for me personally, right? So I think there's probably some our audience here that can relate to that. And so I think it's all about too where you're using the technology, right? Because at least from my opinion, I don't know that you want to completely automate your whole entire answering service. If
right.
It just depends on maybe the customer and what they prefer. But I still think there's a really important key aspect of that human touch at this time right now.
I agree with you. It's understanding where to layer in the AIs. Like I mentioned earlier before, my teams leverage it, on the back end to be able to get and help our customers more quickly. You're not a big fan of the, hi, this is Jim, your AI assistant. But what about if we could say, hey, sounds like you're having an issue with your password, resetting your password. Here's how you fix it. I think you've seen an evolution and adoption where more on that self-service. Human is super important. We need to be able, we do provide that. But I think you're seeing that adoption of if as a managed service provider, if we can provide them those steps, those documentation to be able to resolve and self-resolve their issues, that's still value that we're providing as a managed service provider.
Yeah.
As we look down the road, I think when you get into agentic AI, then that changes the game yet again.
Well, staying on the same topic.
Yeah.
One of the things for me is when we started talking about AI and you started talking about adoption, right? And which one? But think of it this way. I grew up with the drive-through eras. You order through drive-through. Now everybody orders ahead.
Right.
And you either pick it up the drive-through or you go inside and pick it up. And and so I get frustrated when I see somebody.
You talking about on roller skates? Like when they would come in, they spill the milkshake.
There's still a restaurant that does that today. No, but the idea, right? It's going back to what you prefer. Do you prefer ordering ahead? So when you get there, or do you prefer going through drive-through? Now, it does affect the person behind you, right? So when you go through that drive-through and you decide to order 6 specialty burgers, right? Then it's going to take the guy. Versus had you ordered it ahead, that would have been easier and it would be a much.
It's all about customer preference.
100%. So I'm the type of person that if I have an issue at 2:00 in the morning, I really don't want to call somebody. I just want to resolve it. Give me the tools, give me the capabilities, give me everything I need to resolve my issue. Right. Now, if I'm stuck in an airport and I can't get to where I need to, there's times where giving me the number to just say, hey, if you can go online, I know I can go online and do it, but I prefer to talk to someone because my situation's unique or whatever, complex for that. Maybe I'm going to miss one of my connecting flights, but by that time, I'd rather just go to the next city, not to the current city I'm going to, because I'm going to miss that meeting anyway. So being able to have that human being when I want to, being able to have some type of portal or something to be able to resolve my ticket or my issue quicker is my preference.
And I'd love to hear from the audience too. Like, we've talked a lot about, AI and different ways that, we're using it and customers, with the way that we're seeing customers want to be able to use that type of technology. How are you using it in your organization? And what are some of the key benefits that you've seen from leveraging AI or even just automation in general? One last question on the AI topic, and I think we're going to jump into talking about the future and what matters next. But from an AI perspective, really what should organizations be thinking about, in the next, 6 months, right? Where do you see this going to? I know you talked a little bit about agentic, but do you really think that we're there in the next 6 months, or where is AI headed next from your opinion?
I mean, definitely agentic is here. And just so you mentioned RSA, agentic is here. There's capabilities there. How are you going to leverage it? What's the environment? Where's your comfort level of having something executing a command and doing something on your behalf? So there's that now adoption of what do I trust? What's that low impact that resolves issue but is not impacting all of my employees, so to speak. So I think to me that's one of those where agentic is here. How do we adapt customers' environment and where their comfort level? We don't want to apply something that actually creates more problems for our customers, but we still want to be able to resolve those issues. So
yeah,
the same word.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I do think that we are in that era now where, again, it's not just, here's the 4 steps to resolve it. It's getting ahead. It is that self-healing, but understanding the impact of that. I mean, one of the rules that, we used to always use when we were containing devices during the security incident, or it was not, if it impacts a single user all day long, we can handle that. If it's going to impact production, there needs to be consideration. And so I think that's where we're at with it now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's. I know we're getting close to the wrapping up our first, iT1 in session here. But before we do that, I want to take a little bit and talk about the future. From a managed service provider perspective, what do you think is going to matter the most in the next 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I think the evolution of the user is going to continue to evolve, and so we are now able to work on multiple devices. I think the applications are being more and more mobile. And so I feel like the capabilities of being able to support the user wherever they're at, whether it's cellular, internet, Wi-Fi, whatever, offline, whatever that might be, and being able to support them, I think that's going to be big. I think customers need to look at their managed service providers. How well do they adapt? What are those things they're able to provide? I think the one piece is to always remember, what do you want the user experience to be?
Yeah.
And I think focus on that. And then when you're looking at managed providers, how do you guys handle user support, all that. And the other thing is, compliance is becoming big. Right? You talk about security, but I think one of the things we're seeing a lot of is newer requirements around compliance. Right? We have a lot of customers that are looking for compliances because they're being handed down. So maybe they work with the government, they work in healthcare, whatever that is, and they're just passing those compliances down. So, making sure that your managed service provider adheres to multiple compliances is something that I would say you need to look for if you're looking at that 2 to 3 year roadmap.
Yeah, that's great.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, business email compromise is the number one attack vector for customers, followed closely by third party breaches. So when you're considering a managed service provider, if you're going to allow that level of access onto your network, you got to make sure that the people that you're partnering with are actually following those procedures and those processes, the hold the compliance is necessary to be authorized and have those practices in place. Because the last thing you want to do is suffer a major breach because of someone that you allowed or let into your network.
I think that's a huge piece. I mean, typically we would talk about that in depth, and we didn't a lot today, which is the compliance aspect of security and AI. But I think that's really important to think about is, our audience, if you're looking for managed service providers, right? What compliances do they adhere to today?
We'd love to hear what compliances
they
adhere to.
What compliances do your current managed service providers adhere to today? And what's their roadmap to be able to meet those compliances? Because at the end of the day, to your point, right, you're letting someone else into your environment to be able to manage it. So yes, inherently that is a business risk. So it's all about how do you minimize that? And I think being a well-rounded partner from not only a security perspective, but compliance is really, really important. If you had to give one piece of advice to our audience in the technology leaders here, if you haven't worked with an MSP before and you're thinking about it, what's one piece of advice you'd give to the audience?
I mean, for me, it's easy. Reach out. If you're a current customer of iT1, right? Reach out to your account executive, have a conversation, Let's talk about it and have that conversation. Is it about a work-life balance? Is it about subject matter expert? Is there a technology shift happening in your environment? If you're not an iT1 customer, right, just reach out. Let Elizabeth or someone on this session, let us know. We could definitely have that conversation. Take a look at your environment, understand what challenges you guys are having, and then tailor a solution based on what your requirements are. So that would be my recommendation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's at this point, 2026, think outside the box.
Yeah.
Managed services evolve. We're not your standard, here's the 7 things that we do. Like Will was saying, like engage us in that conversation early. Because there's often when we come into the conversation early, we can help you architect a solution that most of the time is going to be more streamlined, efficient, and cost efficient.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Gentlemen, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Love talking about managed services and how to support our customers. Thanks for being a part of our inaugural iT1 in session. Thank the audience as well. I really appreciate you all showing up for us today. Hopefully you learned something new about what's evolving in 2026 from a managed services perspective or just general technology. Thank you to Dell as well, our inaugural sponsor, Dell Technologies.
Thanks for the shirt.
Thanks for the swag.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us again. iT1 in session, where technology meets business and results matter. We will see you on the next one.